Okay, I think most have arrived now. Welcome everybody to today's webinar on the IEA SHC Solar Academy, Solar Heat Worldwide 2024, Harnessing Solar Thermal Energy for a Sustainable Future, hosted by ISIS, the International Solar Energy Society. We are very pleased to have you all here, and we are especially happy to welcome our speakers and you, the audience, on this webinar. My name is Melina. I'm from the ISIS headquarters team in Freiburg, Germany, and I will give you a short introduction to ISIS and the work we do, as we do have a few new participants here. So who we are. International Solar Energy Society, ISIS, is a non-profit UN-accredited membership NGO founded in 1954. ISIS represents a diverse membership of academics, researchers, energy practitioners, consultants, students, businesses, and advocates. Our vision is 100% renewable energy for all, used efficiently and wisely. And we work together with like-minded organizations from countries all around the world to advance the renewable energy transformation. At ISIS, we work on several key activities to advance our mission. These are the congresses. We organize two major scientific congresses, the ISIS Solar World Congress and Eurosun on biannual rotation. The Solar World Congress started in 1970 and will be hosted next year in Brazil, save the date. Eurosun started in 1996 and will be hosted next month in Cyprus, together with IEA SHC. I hope to see many of you there. And the congresses provide both a global and regional focus with between 200 and 400 participants and cover diverse solar themes and topics. At ISIS, we also publish the Solar Energy Journal since 1957. It is one of the oldest and leading journals in the field, with an impact factor of 6 currently and a site score of 13.9. And our latest edition since 2021 is Solar Energy Advances. This is an ISIS fully open access journal. And we just recently received a site score, which is listed at 4.0, and we will be happy to see the site score increase in years to come. We also do webinars, as you know, because you're all here. We started offering webinars in 2012, which they are now a key activity for the society on a monthly basis. Webinars are free to attend and attract up to 500 attendees every month. And important cooperations with other organizations are usually held for the webinars, for example, with the IEA SHC Solar Academy series, REN21, GWNet, or the GSC. We also have some education initiatives where we offer a range of initiatives for students and younger members in the society. And at ISIS conferences, master students can come together for a dedicated master's course where they develop state-of-the-art reports on selected topics and present them to the conference audience. We also have an infographics publication series since 2018, where we try to dispel myths about renewable energy and highlight the potential of solar in day-to-day consumer life. For example, with beverages, as you see. And we have the Solar Energy Museum. It was first launched in 2020 and relaunched early this year with a very new platform. And you can all access this online. It brings together information on solar history, research and development of the past 60 plus years, and highlights important renewable energy pioneers, institutions and companies that were key for the growth of solar energy worldwide. So now some information on Q&A before we start the event. For the Q&A section, we invite you to send your question in the Q&A box. And we look forward to your participation. When sending in questions, please write who the question is for and keep your question short and precise. And please feel free to start sending in your questions at any time throughout the webinar. And now I'm happy to introduce our moderator of today, Valérie Serjonnet. She is the Managing Director of Solar Heat Europe, and with her background in communications and marketing, including diverse working experiences and about 25 years of experience on sustainability strategy and corporate social responsibility for a pan-European association in Brussels. She continues to work in advocacy for a sustainable, low-carbon and just transformation with Solar Heat Europe. And she is also theme chair for our upcoming Eurozone conference in Cyprus, and we're really delighted to have her on board. So now I'm happy to hand over to you, Valerie. Thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Really happy to be with you today, and hopefully you can see my screen. Yes, so thank you very much for the honor to be your host today, the moderator of this workshop, this webinar. So Solar Heat Europe, I'm the managing director of Solar Heat Europe, and today we are in the IEA SHC, so the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program, which is really gathering all the experts around the world to focus their energy and their work on the research for solar thermal and the promotion of that technology worldwide. So we have 19 member countries, as well as the European Commission, international organizations present in the IEA SHC, more than 200 experts and different task forces, which you can see on the screen, focusing on different topics from process heat, solar cooling, solar energy in buildings, etc. So quite a number of active tasks dedicated to the promotion of solar heat in different applications. So the basis of IEA SHC is to have really member countries as key members of the organization. And if you are interested as experts to join one of these tasks, please check first if your country is an IEA SHC member. It's a condition for a country to be that your country would be in the membership of IEA SHC for you to apply to the tasks. And then please feel free to contact each task force chair, task manager to discuss and share about your interests. So this is about the process, checking the membership, the country affiliation, learning about the task, and contacting the manager. Everything is available on the website of IEA SHC. So within IEA SHC, there is also, in addition to the task, the Solar Academy, and it is in this context that we are hosting this event today. So the Academy is really aiming at sharing and applying the results and experience of 50 years of international collaboration and promoting that to anyone who is interested worldwide. So there is promotion of scientific results, training material, case studies, fact sheets, and market data like what we will be discussing today, and evaluation and assessment tools. So that's the whole point of the Solar Academy. What the Academy offers is webinars like the one that we host today, and there will be another version on Thursday for other people in a different time zone, videos, on-site training, and you see different examples of what has been organized already with regard to training. So where you can find more information on the IEA SHC website, in the publication section, and please don't hesitate to also follow IEA SHC via X and LinkedIn, and ask questions to our dedicated secretariat person, Pam Murphy, who I'm sure is on the line with us today. The flagship report that we will be discussing today is the Solar Heat Worldwide report, which was put in the public domain a couple of weeks ago, but which we will dive into more details in the webinar now, as well as the newsletter by IEA SHC. So moving to today's agenda and our speakers, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our three speakers of the day. So first we have Werner Weiss. So Werner is a founding member of the Austrian Research Institute AE InTech, and he has been the director of the institute until February 2020 and is now member of the board. He has been working in national and international solar thermal and energy efficiency projects since the beginning of the 80s and headed numerous national and international projects, especially in the framework of EU, IEA, and UNIDO programs. Since 2010, he is the Austrian representative in the executive committee of IEA SHC, and from 2010 to 2014, he acted as chairman of this IEA program. He is also, since 2007, lecturer at Vienna University of Technology. We will then have Barbara Epp from Solrico and Guglielmo. I will introduce them in a few minutes, but for now, I let Werner take us through the findings of this 2024 Solar Heat Worldwide report. Werner, over to you.
Thank you, Valerie, for the introduction. I hope you can see my slide.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I have the honor to present the main results of this year's edition of the Solar Heat Worldwide report. As some of you might know, we publish this report already 20 years in the framework of the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program. And together with my colleague Monika Spörk-Dürr, we are working on worldwide data now representing about 72 countries worldwide, and we assume it's about 95% of the worldwide market where we have the data in detail. So if you look just to this first figure, then you see the global solar thermal capacity in operation. So that means it's the cumulated installed capacity, and by the end of 2023, we had a total of 560 gigawatt, corresponding to about 800 million square meters of collector installed. The energy yield of this installed capacity is 456 terawatt hours. So it's a quite significant contribution to renewable energy supply. The cumulative global capacity increased in the last year by about 3%. You get a little bit different picture if you look at the annual installed capacity between the year 2001 and 2023. Then you can see that we had challenges in the last years, and most of these developments is due to ongoing challenges in the real estate sector in China, which have happened now for several years, and this became again clear in 2023 as the global dominant Chinese market experienced a significantly slump of 7%. So because 80% of the world market is China, this influences significantly the world market. With this, of course, the world market declined by 7% due to the decline in China of 7.7%. If you have a closer look to this, then you can see it's basically the same graph like you saw before. Just the different colors show you the different regions of the world. The yellow parts are the yellow columns show you the Chinese market, and what you see below this red line, the blue part is Europe. So it's the blue part, and the light green part in the bottom, it's what we call in this chart the rest of the world. So you see the dominance of the Chinese market, and if the Chinese market decrease, of course, this had a major impact on the worldwide decrease. Even if the European market also had some ups and downs, but it was not as bad as in China going down. But there's also, if you just go on a different scale, then you see here the different regions of the world. On the top, you see the other Asia, which is mainly India. So that's the green line on top. And this shows an upward trend, even if you have some up and downs in India as well. I have to mention here, we have this detailed data only until 2022. Then you have this brown or red line here, which is Latin America, with a significant growth over the years in the installed capacity. And without going in all details, what's interesting to me is also on the bottom, this brown line showing here Sub-Saharan Africa. And in 2022, Sub-Saharan Africa overtook the United States and Australia in terms of annually installed capacity. This is very often overlooked because we focus then mainly on China, Europe, maybe India, but not so much on Latin America, where it's going up, and also Sub-Saharan Africa. But there are also good news with the increasing markets, like in the UK in the last year, we had an increase of 66%, but also Mozambique with 40%, India 27%, South Africa 12%, Greece, Mexico, and Brazil had significant growth rates. What? Sorry for this. This should stop. So I hope you can hear me again. Apart from the UK and Greece, the growth markets in 2023 were not in OECD countries, so in the typical industrialized countries. It's really countries in South America, as I mentioned already, like Mexico and Brazil, but also in India and in Africa, like South Africa and Mozambique. So this is really an interesting development. What might be also of interest is here to see the avoided CO2. It's 158 million tons of CO2 are avoided with the total installed capacity up to now. And very often the question comes up, what is the heat price of this solar heat? So this is depending on the size of the system in the range between 20 to 50 euro per megawatt hour. So this is from medium to large scale systems where you reach this price. And it's of course also a little bit depending on the region and where you are. Even if about 60% of the world market is still small scale systems, so that means hot water preparation for single family houses, multiple family houses, this is still the majority of the installed systems are in this application. There is, and also of course for hotels, tourism industry, there is a special interest and a growing interest in large-scale solar thermal heating systems, as you can see here, one on the slide. And here you can see the development of these large-scale systems installed worldwide. And what again becomes here obvious, you can see the green area. So it's growing, it started so really to grow about in the year 2005, 2006, when it started growing. And then you see the green area in the back, it's the collector area installed in Europe. So that means the main collector area in large-scale systems was until 2016 mainly a market in Europe. And from 2016 on, you see this dark blue part from 2016 to 2023 on the top. This is the collector area installed in large-scale systems in China. And the bars show you the number of systems installed per year. And the green parts, the light green parts, show you the installed number of systems in Europe. And the orange parts show the installed systems in China. So what can be easily seen here, the two dominant regions in large-scale systems are China and Europe. By the end of 2023, close to 600 large-scale systems were in operation with a total installed capacity of 2.3 gigawatt, which is approximately 3.3 million square meter of collector area. And the biggest subsector of these large-scale systems are solar district heating systems. So usually they are solar assisted district heating systems. It's 363 systems with 1.9 gigawatt in operation. And here, I guess a lot of people know it, the dominant country in terms of already installed systems is still Denmark, with 124 systems in operation, followed by 72 systems, solar district heating systems in China, 56 in Germany, and 20 systems are operating in Austria. So this just shows you where are the main markets up to now in terms of solar district heating systems. And what's going on at the moment is, I think it's quite interesting to see that in the city of Leipzig in Germany, at the moment, the largest solar district heating system of Germany is under construction, is 41 megawatt, or close to 60,000 square meter collector area. And it's expected to go in operation at the end of 2025. And what's also interesting for Germany is another 78 megawatt solar district heating are in the pipeline in Germany. So they are either already under construction or in an advanced planning stage. So there is a certain momentum in Germany, especially concerning solar district heating. SHIP, so solar heat for industrial processes, is another sector with growing interest over the last years. I don't want to go very much in detail here because Bärbel Epp will dive significantly deeper concerning industrial process heat, but I give you just a quick overview what we have also published in the Solar Heat Worldwide report. So in 2023, at least 116 new industrial process heat systems were installed. And what I just want to mention is really two factors. I guess Bärbel will go more in detail. Just compared to 2022, even if the number of new systems remained the same, but the capacity, so the size of the system, tripled from 2022 to 2023. It was especially interesting, what you can see also here on the slide, is that the second change in the market concerns the types of collectors used. In previous years, flat plate collectors were primarily utilized for industrial applications. However, in 2023, concentrating collectors became the predominant choice. Just within 1 year, so from March 2023 to March 2024, a total of 11 systems for industrial process heat with 120 megawatt were installed. So that's really a significant change. Where are these systems concerning countries? Then you can see in terms of number of installed systems, Mexico leads with 119 systems, followed by Germany with 63, then the Netherlands, China, and India. So that's from left to the right, you see the countries with the highest number of systems. However, if you look to the installed capacity, then Oman with just 2 systems, 2 really large systems for advanced oil recovery, is leading the market, followed by China, and then Spain, number 3, Australia, and the big Chile with their big systems, especially for the copper mining industry. Breweries really point the way, or pointed the way in the last year. And the biggest installation which was installed last year is this 30 megawatt installation at the Heineken brewery in Spain. But I just jump over it because I'm quite sure Bärbel will show this as well. And then we have also another 2 breweries, one in Italy and one in Greece, with more or less the same size, with 660 square meter parabolic trough collectors. So this really shows that breweries point the way here in terms of higher temperatures with parabolic trough collectors. Another interesting application is a 800 megawatt parabolic trough collector field at the Handan Bay Water World in China. So it's really huge, 114,000 square meter parabolic trough collectors, and you can be of different opinion concerning the application. With the heat produced here or the energy produced here, the collector system supplies a snow machine for an indoor ski hall as well as heating and cooling for this water world. But it shows this can go really huge. Another application concerning solar thermal and electricity are this PVT, so the combination of photovoltaic thermal systems, where you have a collector in one unit where you produce heat and electricity in one unit. And this picture shows you just one system for domestic hot water and swimming pool heating, about 2,100 square meter in Barcelona in Spain. Up to now, we have about 1.6 million square meter PVT collectors are installed worldwide. Where are the main markets? If you look to 2023, then the main market worldwide was in Europe with about 64%, followed by other Asia, which is again mainly India, and then China with about 9%, the MENA region, so that's North Africa and the Middle East, 4%, and all the others about 3%. And if you focus on Europe, then still close to 40% of the market, of the European market, is in France, followed by Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, Italy, Switzerland. And I think what's important to mention is between 2017 and 2021, there was a steady growth in PVT installations, but in 2022 was the first decline, mainly due to the downturn in the French market. And this was mainly caused by changes in the French funding scheme. And this really led to a collapse, more or less, of the air PVT collector market in France. So this was in 2022, but also in 2023, unfortunately, the PVT market shrank by 30%. And a lot of companies, of the manufacturers, told us there was such a strong demand in PVT that some of the companies just focused on PVT instead of the PVT collectors. But there are also very positive information. We had significant growth of 34% of the PVT market in Spain, and also in Belgium with about 20% market growth in PVT. A new development which we observed is photovoltaic generated heat. And I know there is a big discussion on this topic, if this makes sense to produce electricity and then downgrade electricity to heat. Also, in my point of view, it's something like thermodynamic vandalism if we do this, but it's happening. So therefore, we decided to take it into our report. And especially PV to heat systems increasingly offered at lower cost than solar thermosiphon systems in Southern Africa. And in addition to cost benefits, this type of system also has the advantage that the hot water storage tanks no longer need to be installed on roofs. The systems don't have a stagnation or frost issue. So therefore, there's really a growing market. As you can see here, about 34,000 systems are also installed already. So it started about 2018, and it is growing every year. As I said, in total, 34,000 systems are installed already. What I should mention here as well is, if you compare solar thermal and photovoltaic systems, you can see it here in a slide from Solar Heat Europe, that there is a difference in the size. And we had a project, or still have a project in Southern Africa, where you see this comparison on basically the same type of house. On the left-hand side, with the thermal system. On the right-hand side, we have the photovoltaic system. So to get the same amount of hot water, you need a significantly bigger area of photovoltaic installation. So if it's these small systems for single family houses, it still works on these small houses. If you go to a bigger demand of hot water, then of course, there's a question of the area availability. But as I said, this is happening. And at the end of my presentation, I have just another 2 slides. it's also what's also going on, especially in Switzerland and some in Germany, that 100% heated houses coming up, like here, 104 kilowatt peak photovoltaic system directly supplies a big hot water store, a huge storage inside the house. And this house is 100% heated with this 100 cubic meter hot water tank inside the house. There's 100% hot water and space heating demand of this multiple family house is provided. And then also a new development is, I just show this example here, a 125 megawatt peak PV system in Bundorf in Germany was installed basically as a PV system. And a part of the system, 1.5 megawatt of the PV plant, is directly connected to the neighboring heating center of the district heating network. And there, a 400 kilowatt electric boiler and a 200 kilowatt air heat pump process so the solar power into heat. And this is obviously, or looks like, more district heating networks are thinking in this direction. At least several of these, usually combining PV and heat pump or biomass concept, are in progress. So I think this is a challenge for the solar thermal market, but I think this is also what we should have on our radar. Coming to my last slide. So what is the outlook and what is in the pipeline? I mentioned already 78 megawatt solar district heating are in the pipeline in Germany. So just under construction or very advanced planning stage. Then we have this 154 megawatt for Chilean copper mines. They are scheduled and in a very advanced development stage, so industrial process heat. And the biggest under preparation is a 1.5 gigawatt solar steam project for aluminum refinery in Saudi Arabia. So this would be or will be by far the biggest system ever built on solar thermal. So there is a lot of interesting stuff in the pipeline and ongoing. And I hope I was able to give you an interesting insight into the development of solar thermal market, but I could present only a small part of the comprehensive report. So if you're interested in the overall report, just download it from the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling website. There you can download not only this year's report, but also the reports of the previous years. With this, I thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to questions. And if you have questions, just type it into the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Werner, and congratulations to you and the whole team and all the countries and industry associations who have contributed to this extensive piece of work. There is a big, thick report of 100 pages available with all the details, and thank you for the overview that you just gave to us. Thanks a lot. So we will leave the questions in one go for all three speakers at the same time. For the moment, I would like to introduce Bärbel. So Bärbel Epp is the founder and managing director of the German consultancy SolarEco. She's responsible for the international newsletter of solarthermalworld.org and which reports exclusively about market and technology trends in the solar heating and cooling sector globally. SolarEco has also been creating the first online world map of solar heat for industrial processes suppliers. And I'm sure she will give you the URL and the details about that. And she's also carrying regular surveys among all the industry players who are active in solar thermal. Bärbel graduated in physics at the University of Oldenburg in Germany. And the floor is yours, Bärbel. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Valerie. I'm happy to dive deeper, as Werner said, into the solar industrial heat market, or generally the heat decarbonization market, challenges, trends, and outlook. Oh, well. Okay. Yes. What is SHIP? You have to get introduced to that short form as we usually use it. It's solar heat for industrial processes. And I show you in this info chart that it goes from a very wide range of temperatures. We start with below 50-degree air collectors for drying and greenhouse heating in agricultural sector, and we go up to nitrat melting, drying of paint, distilling in with concentrating collectors up to 400-degree. And we are the solar heat industry is very clever in adapting to the needs of the industrial companies. We can either provide hot air or hot steam or pressurized hot water or thermal oil or whatever is necessary for the client. A simple SHIP system is shown here below. It usually consists of a collector field and a heat storage unit. And these two components are in the focus of my presentation today. And I look into market developments. As Valerie said, we do a lot of market surveys. So, this big range of collector technologies is not just theory if you put it down on a nice infographic, but it also takes place in the market. Werner already mentioned the 94 megawatt that were newly installed SHIP capacity last year. And you see that all these different collector types took place. They were used, either the stationary collectors, which are yellow and orange here, the concentrating ones, green, gain importance a lot in the market with higher temperatures, which is a very positive trend because there's a large volume of high temperature heat necessary to be decarbonized in the industry. New last year were the large share of air collector systems that was due to big drying systems for animal feed producers in Spain, two big facade integrated systems. And PVT, also mentioned by Werner, it's still a smaller segment, but we see a number of manufacturers, particularly in Germany, Netherlands, and Switzerland, that target the industrial sector, which is usually a big consumer of solar thermal and PV. So they are usually keen on having this combination of producing both. Yeah, this shows you a bit the history where we come from. Werner already mentioned that it's a dynamically growing field, what we call SHIP. We started in 2016 with the annual surveys with 300 megawatt of a world market identified at this time. This has tripled in the last 7 years to more than 900 megawatt, and the number of systems has more than doubled to 1,209. And the yellow bars, which are shown there, always show the annual additions. You see that we had this best, like a little downward trend during the pandemic, but recently it took up again with the 94 megawatt. And the gray bars here are in 2017 and 2019 are the big capacities that were installed in Oman, which is mentioned by Werner and still the highest, the biggest plant in the world in terms of solar steam. Well, the leading countries in SHIP differed a lot in recent years. In 2023, Spain really made the race. You see that more than 50% of the market was installed in Spain. This was due to a nice European funding that was allocated in 2022, and around 50 systems got funding permissions, and a lot of them were installed. And the deadline to be finally installed to receive the funding was September 2023. So this was why Spain took a lion's share of the market. But you see France, China, Netherlands are typically also dynamically growing SHIP markets. We have Mexico also. I will get back to that in a minute. But you see that even Jordan, Cuba, Ecuador saw new capacity installed. Brazil as well, 2 systems recently. So it's a widespread technology already, and project developers are quite widespread active. Yeah, as I said, Mexico is an interesting case because there's no funding available and still SHIP market takes place. Here are 2 sophisticated systems for the mining sector. We all know the mining sector mentioned by Werner is a very conservative sector. We had a long period from the very first copper mine systems in 2013 in Chile, a big one. It took almost, in the last 2 years, only 2 systems came to power. This is the second one, one, which is mentioned on the right, Grupo Mexico. And now this big announcement with the 154 was really sort of a pleasing one, because the first systems of 10 years ago performed very well actually in Chile, and did very well for the copper mines, reaching 80% of solar share. So, well, it took the copper mine industry a bit of time to understand their decarbonization responsibility, it seems, but I think it's a good client group and a very promising market segment for solar industrial heat in the future. The left one is a bit different. It's the largest concentrating plant, which is installed in Mexico. It's Inventive Power is the project developer. Hanka is the client, an ammonium nitrate producer. The parabolic drafts produce here 160°. It's a 1,300 square meter field, and it was a turnkey installation, including the steel tanks with 24 cubic meters. Yeah, how about the mood? You know, as we question the project developers directly, we also gather statements from them. And I want to read out 3 to you to give you a bit of an idea about the mood. You know, the first said in the previous survey from the beginning of the year, although the ship market has demonstrated a high growth potential, the sales cycles for industrial clients had not shortened as we had expected. And the second one, customers are cautious because the energy market situation cannot be assessed. Gas prices dropped while interest rates increased. And the third one, although we had many leads in various countries, we did not close any projects during 2023. So altogether, we can summarize the situation still in the sense that it's difficult to close contracts. The ship development, the project developers are really busy with requests. Demand and requests are really increasing, and the crisis with the Ukrainian war and the peak of gas prices and the discussion in Europe, at least, on the shortage of gas sensibilized a lot of companies. But, you know, until management decides, this is still a long process. And it's still a high dependency of energy prices. As soon as the energy prices go down, the awareness is low. But there's also one driving factor, and this is foreseen and reported from many project developers, and this is the internal carbon targets by the multinational corporations, which slowly understood that it's not enough to just fulfill the electricity side with a purchase agreement, which they all have in place already, you know, to purchase 100% green electricity, but they now also look seriously on the heat side. And on the heat side, especially solar heat in nice irradiation areas is an opportunity which is often looked at. So from this side, the demand is really increasing. Well, the reaction from the project developers towards this hesitating client group, you know, because I always call the industrial clients the most hesitating and most difficult to tackle client group, you know, of all our sectors, like building sector and utility sector and so on. They reacted to that with offering more share to offering heat delivery contracts instead of hardware. So they liberate the client from investing themselves and taking them, just offering them, we will provide you heat or steam or whatever, and we invest and you would just purchase the steam over a fixed contract, period. And this is what is shown here, because this chart shows the 2 major trends in the global ship market. The one on the top, I have already mentioned, this is the increasing share of concentrating collectors, which is marked here in red in the pie chart, increasing to 49% of the market in 2023. And the line on the bottom shows you the share of the heat delivery contracts, and as particularly the larger systems are usually established as ESCO projects, that means heat delivery contracts. The share is now already at 63%. And this has a bit of a different view because it's outside China. You know, we have not looked into China. The problem with China is that we cannot really cover the ship market in China as a whole, because the transparency is not strong enough, and there's much more happening that we report. So we decided in these charts to do without China. Yeah, I told you that heat purchase agreements are really an important business and a successfully applied business model. And so I want to show you some of the projects that were realized last year with this business model. The first one is already mentioned by Werner. It's Heineken breweries. Breweries lead the way. That was Werner said. It's a very important client group. We had here an interesting combination of ENGIE as an utility with Solarlight, a German project developer, that made this happen. It's a 30 megawatt parabolic draft collector field supplying 210 degree to the Heineken brewery in Sevilla. And it's a heat purchase agreement signed with ENGIE over 20 years. The second, the one on the bottom, is also a record size plant because it's the largest plant at the moment in France, developed by New Heat, a French project developer. It's in the north of France, Verdun, a dairy, Lactalis, and 10.5 megawatt, providing 80 degree to the company. And in this case, the business model is a special purpose vehicle, which function as the ESCO for the client. Two more plants that needs really mentioning because linear Fresnel collectors is the alternative to parabolics, but a lot less used. And one of the largest installations, I would probably consider it the world's largest linear Fresnel field, was commissioned last year in September, also at Heineken Brewery in Valencia, Spain. The project developer here was Solatom in Spain. 220 degree are delivered, and a heat purchase agreement was signed with the client by a joint venture, which is called CSIN. The one in the bottom, also an interesting combination of project developer. In this case, the client is a packaging company called Ball in California. The original project developer is Solid, who built also the flat plate collector field with 2.8 megawatt, providing 70 degree to the client. And here in this case, the heat purchase agreement is signed with Tigi Solar in Israel. And what is worth mentioning about this plant, that the engineering capacity of Solid and the many discussions with the client over the year of planning the solar installation and the integration points made that the company completely switched away from steam to hot water. And this saved a lot of maintenance costs and also a lot of losses, which are linked to reducing the overall temperature of the heat supply network. So an ideal engineering success to change the whole supply system of the client in this case. Well, the innovation potential of concentrating collectors is high in the world. I cannot go into details too much, but we have listed more and more, for example, parabolic draft collector manufacturers on the world map that was mentioned by Valerie. It's the Solar Heat solar-payback.com world map on suppliers. I have the link at the end of my presentation. And this is a fairly different technology, as you see. It's provided to the field, to the site, as a foil, in a container rounded up, and it's then floated and inflated as a tube together with these metal construction, which are like a ring, along to stabilize the tube. And the mirrors within this tube all is transparent, are also made from foil. So completely new materials, very interesting in terms of saving of money, transportation costs, also installation costs. They are in an early stage. It's an Austrian startup, Heliovis, but challenging. And let's see how the costs will develop over time of this such new material parabolics. The last system I want to show you of last year's highlights system is a Belgium one. It was developed by Aztec, also parabolic draft collectors. It's a chemical industry called Avery Dennison, also a multinational corporation. And what is special here is the combination with a hot, high temperature heat storage. You see this black box here, which is a piled up module of thermal batteries. Altogether, 6 batteries were piled up and together insulated. It's a 5 megawatt-hour capacity, maximum capacity. The storage provider is Energy Nest from Norway. It's a solid state storage tank with concrete tubes as the material to absorb the heat. It's a heat-to-heat system. It's directly charged with a thermal oil from the solar heat plant, charging at 380 degree and discharging at 310 degree. And the whole arrangement with the field and the tank has a share of about 20%. So as I have shown you that high temperature applications are increasingly supplied by project developers, we wanted to look a bit deeper into what the new industry is like, which offers these high temperature storages. And we have first integrated an opinion poll in our recent survey in February, March, and we asked the ship project developers, what do you think about these power to heat storage solutions? Is this a good addition to a ship system, or is this a strong competitor to a ship system? And you see that 47 of them gave an answer, and the first line here shows a high agreement with the fact that power to heat storage solutions are a good addition to ship systems. Only a small share here disagree. But if you ask them whether it still can be a competitor in certain cases, there's still 30%, a third, that agrees that there is a certain competing situation. And I think this has to do with the fact that a lot of these high temperature storages work in a mood of only power to heat, so they can only use electricity from the grid via a resistant heating to be charged, and therefore they are not compatible with a solar industrial heat plant. But what is very clear after our analysis, because we made a survey among them, and I will now among these high temperature storage tank solution providers, and they go from 100 to 2000 degrees. So they store heat. That is what they have in common. It's not electricity which is stored, but it's always heat which is stored. And the temperature range is, as I said, 100 to 2000. And they target very much the industrial heat market. So I want to share with you home pages of these companies, how they slogan their services. And Build to Zero, for example, is a Spanish company, and saying building a net zero industry with thermal box, which is their product. Or Antora from USA says reliable zero emissions industrial heat and power. So aiming again the industry. This is from Australia, 1414, the future of clean industrial heat. So this is their slogan, on the main slogan on their heat pump. So what we really found out is that we identified 31 companies which offer these kind of high temperature heat storages, and 11 of them exclusively target the industrial sector. And 90% of them target at least industrial heat off-takers as one of their customer groups. Very few, only 3 of them say we only do electricity to electricity, power to power, or we only target power plant operators or something. So that's the industry is really the focus point. It's a fairly young industry. That's what we have noted as well. If you look, this is the year of foundation here with all the companies, and you see that only 2 of them, which are up there in light purple, which are really established engineering companies. All the others are less than 15 years old. And we noted that USA and Europe are really the technology hubs. USA has 10 companies identified, and they have huge funding available by DOE, public money, and also equity and venture capitalists finance a lot into these startups. And 16 companies, at least in Europe, so this is also a fair contribution. We had looked into 2 key segments or aspects when we did the survey, and one is the level of commercialization, and the other one was the concept of the storage tank, the storage material which was used. I cannot go too much into details here, and I really would like to point you to the publications which are all summarized under this short link which I put here. They're all published on solarthermalworld.org. The whole survey was financed by the Canadian government, but completely in the sense of being able to publish the results for a wider audience. So all is available online. And you see here from the level of commercialization that we were only able to identify 5 companies of this 31 which have already a commercial project in operation. One was with a commercial plant under construction when we did the survey in March, and the others are still at pilot stage, demonstrator stage, and 6 of them even do not have a pilot plant, so they are only in R&D phase. So I mean, they are fairly confident with their websites, as I showed you before, but early in the implementation phase. So what do they use as tank concepts? Only a brief glance into that. I will finish in 2 slides. We have different media which they use. You know, the molten salt, the blue cycle here, is most known from CSP plants, and there were 6 identified. They usually go up to 560 degrees. After that, molten salt gets corrosive. But one company, a Danish one, even announces a molten salt strategies which go up to 700 degrees. Above that, you know, you have all this solid state storage tanks, which are the biggest group here in the bottom with 12. And you have usually a big range of materials which are used. You know, it can be steel, it can be granite rocks, bricks, concrete tubes, blocks, iron ore, ceramics. So it's a wide range, and you find a big table under this short list, which gives you exactly each company and their storage concept they are using. So you can look it up if you want to have a certain company or you want to check certain technologies. What I find also interesting is this yellow pie field, which includes 8 companies, and they use solid particle storages. So that means they use either sand or crushed volcanic rock, granulate, ceramic balls, which sometimes has the advantage that they don't need a heat exchanger, but they can just blow the air through the particles and save a bit of money, because these heat exchangers are usually a costly component in these storages. And the phase change material ones, you see there are only 3 in high temperature storage yet. They are really still a niche, and it's double complex, you know, have high temperatures in all the insulation and then also change phase materials. It's a bit of a rare case, so to say. Yeah, the photos cannot go into details what the commercial projects are, but they are described under the short link. But I wanted to share with you some photos because they're very different concept. This polar night energy is, for example, filled with sand. This one is using the fume from the ovens in a ceramic factory, and this is Rondo, which has is a solid stage tank. But please go into details if this interests you, and look for the publications. So this is it already. Thanks for your audience. Thanks to the audience for listening. I have just put together some links here. This is the world map, which was mentioned several times, where you find all the suppliers. We have a ship plant gallery with a lot of photos, which you can use for your own presentations or publications free of charge. We have the ship survey results are listed under solarthermalworld.org under the /modulus. And certainly you can also follow us on Twitter if you want to be more updated. And my contact information is here. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the Q&A session, and hand over to Valerie.
Thank you very much, Barbel, for this good overview. It's nice to have very practical case studies and to see that there are so many projects live and already benefiting from solar heat in industrial processes. So I think that the clock is ticking. So without further ado, I would like that Guglielmo takes the floor to still allow for a 15-minute Q&A with the people. So Guglielmo is a nuclear engineering graduate. He also Master of Finance. I will try to summarize his long career of 30 years as best as I can, but he He started as a public servant for the Italian diplomacy for 15 years in different countries around the world. He's also been involved in some Italian and Chinese cooperation program on climate change, and later worked on in the private sector in order to develop the first Italian privately funded carbon fund. And now, since 2014, is the Chief of Business Development at TVP Solar, which is one of the solar thermal companies, and is also a proud president of Solar Heat Europe since a year ago. Over to you, Guglielmo, if you can do it in 15 minutes so that we have a bit of time for the Q&A after. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I have a presentation which I will just share on the screen, but I will not really follow. I will just use it to explain a bit what I mean. This presentation was actually done by you, Valerie, in the occasion of the recent event of our General Assembly at Solar Heat Europe. But there are so many elements that are important to underline and also to comment upon. Of course, when we describe the numbers and the issues of solar thermal, we mostly refer, in Solar Heat Europe, we mostly refer to the European market. But I guess that some of the considerations are valid at a global level. Okay, we are, as Solar Heat Europe, we represent most of the value chain of solar thermal, from manufacturers of collectors to engineering companies, to components companies for the collectors, to the project developer, and so on and so forth. So it's really embracing all sorts of point of views and business expectations and practices in our industry. And of course, we are also including most of the European associations of solar thermal. I have to say that although whatever has been presented by Werner and also by Berbel looks very encouraging in terms of the development of our sector, it really shows also that we are at a very early stage. What I mean by that is this. When we look at our cumulated total installation, for example, in Europe, we're talking about 41 gigawatts. Werner before was talking about 500 gigawatts or something. And he also explained that the largest part of this is in China. So clearly China has its own market with their own manufacturers and its own, let's say, market shape that allows this big development. But the rest of the world is much smaller. And Europe, to me, is really still very small. And this is not because I don't like having installed 41 gigawatts in Europe, but if I look at the numbers, for example, of solar photovoltaics, which honestly I see the closest proxy to what solar thermal wants to do, we're talking about, I'm going by heart, okay? I read an article recently that last year only, solar photovoltaic has installed 440 gigawatts of power in 1 year. And of course, 250 of them was in China, but the rest is around the world. So what does it tell? That although we're all using solar energy for different purposes, we are basically, there is no reason why solar thermal could not replicate the huge success that solar PV has had around the world. And therefore, our numbers are likely to grow hugely. Also, with respect of a fact that we always keep saying around, and that is that heat is half. Heat is half of all global consumption. And if you look, for example, only at the building sector, it's 80% of the building consumption. So clearly, the need for solar thermal is there to cover the huge decarbonization task that is in front of us. But the need does not translate right away into a demand. And because I am a business development guy for one of the companies, TVP Solar, who has invested more than anybody else in solar thermal in recent years, I can tell you that our ambitions are much, much bigger than the picture that is being drawn today, for example, with relation to the large-scale solar installation. So clearly, Berbel has shown a number of examples which are very valid, and also Werner, both in district heating and in industrial process heat. But still, the overall landscape is very discrete. You know, there are projects here and there, rather than continuous, like the photovoltaic plant, that have scaled up to the utility scale quite quickly. So next question would be, and I should be talking here about the way to growth, or the way to grow. How do we grow? So for me, one aspect, of course, is related to residential solar thermal that still has a lot to say and a part to play to decarbonize building. But in the case of large-scale installation, then we're talking about much bigger numbers and much bigger potential for growth. What's the main difference that I see between utility scale PV and solar thermal? I think that PV has managed to present themselves to the market not only as a solution for producing energy, but also, and more importantly, as a significantly well-defined way to invest capital. So basically, a solar PV plant is similar to what financial people call a bond, because it is very predictable in terms of long-term performance, and thanks to the practice of having long-term power purchase agreement with the grid, or long-term subsidies that were available until just a few years ago, they have managed to secure clear financial returns for their investors. And you know, in the world, there is a shortage of all sorts of energy, but there is never shortage of capital if you are able to propose reasonable returns. And this is what PV has managed to do, but also wind power has managed to do. So solar thermal, this is my view, at least, and I am promoting this view in Solar Europe as well, needs to step up and to create all those tools and instruments that allow the PV to become really an investment asset for the big capital that needs to be invested in energy in the coming years. You know, you read the news and the reports, and everybody's talking trillions, and this is true. We're talking trillions of dollars or euros that will be needing to shift from current fossil fuels to other forms of renewable energy, be it geothermal, renewable thermal, or anything else, or renewable electricity. But because of the nature of these investments that are very much reliant on initial capital, we will need to mobilize this capital, providing some reassurance about the return. So what Berbel was presenting at the end, that is basically the heat purchase agreement structure of some large-scale solar thermal plants, is really the future. And you know, you heard Werner presenting the largest solar field under construction in Leipzig, but for example, my own company, we have built a solar plant in the Netherlands that today I think is the 4th biggest in the world, and we are delivering it right now. And we built it with the project financing, which is the same, absolutely the same pattern and methodology that PV is doing. And so basically, the investors, we are some of the investors, our company is one of the investors. We have put money up front. We have found the way to obtain also debt financing for the project. We established a long-term heat purchase agreement with the community of Groningen via their district heating company, and we will operate the plant for 30 years, of course, charging them some energy cost and delivering to the investors a return. So this is really exactly the PV way. So what needs to be in place to achieve this at the largest scale and possibly not in a scattered point-to-point pattern as it is now? We need to reshape in some way our sector. We need to give more and more importance to the risk assessment of our project. What does it mean? A financial investor will look for the numbers that we propose in terms of financial returns, but it will also look about the risks that these returns might not be there. And these risks, in the case of photovoltaic, are assessed by having a very rigorous system in place for determining the future performance of a solar plant, the future costs, the uncertainties, providing additional financial like insurance contracts for the weather pattern, and a lot of other important aspects of project financing that today in solar thermal are not really common practice. So I guess an evolution is required to fulfill our goals, and the potential is there. The business is there, both in district heating and solar thermal and in residential. Let me talk about residential for a minute. You have seen all over Europe, probably also at your home, wherever you are, the growth of energy service companies that basically are spin-offs of large energy distributors. And we have a number of examples in Europe. They are proposing to all of their clients energy services, but what they're really doing is really providing finance to install equipment at your home, like heat pumps, for example, or solar PV. What they do, they basically lend you the money and get paid via a fixed fee or a variable fee all over the years. This is a big business, and I don't see why solar thermal could not be a part of it. Maybe in some cases it already is, but really that is the way to sell capital goods like the solar systems are, without having to charge too much upfront to our final user. And this is, I guess, the most important message I want to send, that opportunities are there if we are ready to change our way of facing our business and approaching our final user. Look at this that I'm showing you here. This is, I used to present it to all of my colleagues as well in my company. This is a big opportunity here. Look, the European Building Directive obliges all the rooftops to become solar in time, starting from new public buildings to existing public buildings. So it's a huge amount of square meters that needs to be equipped with solar. And there is the trick. They talk about solar. They don't say solar thermal or solar PV. So either we equip ourselves with the right tools to face this huge opportunity market, or this will all be PV. So clearly, our company have a lot to do. My company has a lot to do, to grow, to raise capital, because this is nothing like it's going to happen with the kind of resources that solar thermal has today. We have to raise capital. We are expected, for example, by the European Union to triple all that we did until so far, like this 40 gigawatt hour. They have to triple by 2030. This is clearly very hard or impossible to do without some certainties that will allow our companies, solar thermal companies, to invest in additional production capacity and to invest in training the people that will need to produce, to promote, and to install. So it's a huge effort and requires huge resources, but the opportunities are all there. So if you ask me, what is the way to growth? The way to growth is change. Do not expect that we can fulfill this task and we can really face our role in the energy transition that is much bigger than whatever solar thermal ever did, by doing the same thing that we ever did. We need to modernize and we need to provide data, clear data about the performance of our systems, because at some point, and this point I believe is today, we're not selling anymore solar collectors or pipes or, I don't know, pumps. We are selling the energy that we produce. So until we are clear on how much energy are we producing, and we take commitments like we are doing, for example, in our case, TVP Solar, we take commitments on the energy that we will deliver, then we will never be an object for investment. So this is a process. It's happening. I really call all of my colleagues in the solar thermal sector to participate, both via the association or even simply working with the same goal and approach that we are trying to promote as a company and as an association. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning and thank you, Arabella, or good afternoon to those of you who are in different parts of the world. So it's my great pleasure to be your moderator for this Q&A session. I am Valérie Séjourné, the Managing Director of Solar Heat Europe. And I see that we have a first question with regard to solar thermal and cooking. So can solar thermal be used for cooking? And we have some examples on installations pilots. I think I know the answer, but Werner, can I leave this one for you?
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody. Yes, of course, you can use solar thermal for cooking. This is what we are not especially looking at in our Solar Heat Worldwide report. This is not part of the report. But as you know, there are solar cookers in different types, so from box cookers to parabolic devices, and also solar bakeries. So there's a lot of information available on this, and especially in China, in India, there are really large-scale cooking devices for years already available, especially with dish systems. But maybe Bärbel can add to this.
Yeah, I think these Indian examples are really famous. They use the huge parabolic dishes in a row. They produce thermal oil and they lead the thermal oil into big cooking houses where the pots are surrounded by the thermal oil. And they have installations where they produce 5,000 meals a day, you know, in these big ashrams. This was subsidized until, I think, 2023 in India, and there were every year 5 or 6 big new installations, and today it's reduced the activity, and but there are new dishes coming up, larger dishes which are very ground efficient, so you have only one pole which goes into the ground and you can use the rest of the ground below, and they have 500 square meter. And this is a new technology developed together with Austrians. So it's still, I think there's still innovation going on, and some companies are still following this up in India particularly. But this is parallel to what Werner said with the small cookers that can be used in Africa, you know, to avoid cooking with a simple wood stove.
And you could go to Solar Cookers International. There's a good website where you find a lot of information on solar cooking.
Chance last week to go and test the first solar restaurant in Europe, which is based in Marseille, called Le Présage. So that was a nice experience in Marseille. Yes. Good. I don't see any other burning question. Let me see, maybe I could just, to allow people to be inspired by other questions, see what was asked last time. We had one which was about what is the area equivalent for 1 megawatt thermal solar heating system. Can you give, please, a brief overview? Would Guglielmo like to take this one?
Of course. Well, this area slightly depends on the application temperature and also the radiance level, but typically we consider it to be between 1,600 and 1,800 square meters of collectors, which means that more or less we're talking about 2,800 square meters of area. These are just, rule of thumb figures. They may be different, but typically this is what we take when we do first evaluations.
Maybe I can add here. Okay.
1 megawatt the solar thermal being 3,000 means that we occupy more or less 1/3 of the space than any photovoltaic would do for the same peak power. Please, Barbara, sorry.
No, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. No, we have done an analysis of stationary collectors in big fields in Germany, and we have looked into the ground area and the megawatt installed, and we found an average. I think we identified 10 systems. It was 3,600 square meter per megawatt, a bit larger than what you said. And I think when we go into concentrating, there is usually a higher amount for parabolic drafts, because you have to separate them a bit more so that they don't shade each other. But Fresnel collectors seem to be lower than, this is at least what we saw from the first installations. They are a bit lower in ground area demand, but we have only very few Fresnel systems so far.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. In fact, I should have said that my numbers are referred to the flat plate.
To stationary.
Yes, yeah. Yes, not tracking. Tracking requires more space.
Exactly.
What is the best option for hydrogen? Good question.
Okay, do you want to take this one then, Guglielmo?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I wouldn't produce hydrogen for no reason. But having said that, for solar thermal, if you're looking at solar thermal, not photovoltaic, I think that hydrogen requires, no, let's say, if you're looking to green hydrogen made with hydrolyzers, I guess that they would work better with slightly higher temperature feed water. So in this case, we could go with the stationary up to 80 or 100 degrees, not more. But if you're looking to other types of electrolyzer, like the soft solid oxide fuel cell, then you have a lot of reject heat that might be used for that. So to be honest, my take on solar decomposition of water is that it's still a bit early stage, but maybe Werner or Berbel have different views.
Notice if you are interested in general in this topic, we just started. It's just in the starting phase, a new task in the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program, where hydrogen is a topic. So if experts are here who are interested in this, this might be an opportunity to join the new task. So the number is now, I'm always bad with numbers, it's 72.
Oh, well.
But you just go to the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling website. I'll check in a second, and get in contact with the task organizer. And so this is, as Guglielmo said, in an early stage, in a research stage, but there are, of course, really a lot of opportunities to go in this direction. But it's not available to date in large scale or commercial scale.
Okay, so I think there is a precision from Ari, who was asking initially about solar thermal cooking. one thing that the question was not so much about the availability of solar thermal cooking options, but more a concern about the promotion of solar PV-based induction cooking. Since Dr. Weiss showed a slide on area efficiency comparison between solar thermal and PV, he was seeking the panel's expert view on whether it makes sense to promote solar PV cooking aggressively.
Well, we don't see this trend yet, and I think the areas will be enormous to do solar PV cooking.
Yes, and I think we would not be the sector promoting that as we are the solar thermal industry. So I would move to the next question. Sorry, we go a bit back and forth, but back to the ground area required for 1 megawatt through solar thermal, which is lower than PV, but what is the cost comparison in terms of US dollar per megawatt between solar thermal and PV? Guillermo, can you take that?
Yes, so of course, it really depends on what is the cost of PV that today is going down and down for market reasons that sometimes have nothing to do with the production costs. And so, I mean, that the cost of a megawatt hour of solar thermal is influenced, as I also said during the presentation, by the factors like the available irradiance and the output temperatures. And besides, of course, the efficiency of the collectors and the cost of the collectors. But I mean, we have carried out extensive surveys that show that they can vary around 20 euros or dollars per megawatt hour, up to 50, depending if you are in a cold country or in a highly irradiated country. But maybe Berbel has better the numbers in mind of the surveys that we carried out. They are also different if you compare large scale and small scale applications, because they're different in economy factors and also in temperature of application.
Yes, well, I mean, we have looked into costs. I think it was 2021. We had looked into a lot of systems that were installed, and we compared the yield and the installation costs and the hardware costs. We found that generally district heating is fairly cost competitive. So we have a very rather narrow band of megawatt hour, euro per megawatt hour prices. I think it's around 20 to 50, which is also mentioned in the Solar Heat Worldwide as a reference. If we go to solar industrial heat, there we have very cost competitive countries where we are really at only a few cents per kilowatt hour, which is China and Mexico. Turkey also reaches very low heat prices. And I will share with you in the chat maybe a link to the charts that we produce, because this gives you a bit of an overview. And a ship in Europe is still relatively expensive. We have found a big band of megawatt prices in existing systems, which goes from like 10 to 90 euro or even 100 euro per megawatt hour. This depends very much whether a system is a demonstration one and or whether it's like a standard one and so on. So not that clear answer that you might expect if you ask for prices, actually. But I will share this link in the chat.
Thank you. So then we have this question, I guess from Ari in India, where he said that in India, they started off with equal focus on both solar thermal-based power generation as well as grid-connected SPV. While grid-connected SPV has taken off, solar thermal-based power generation has not moved at all. So it would be great to hear the expert's view on this. Maybe linked to this is the one underneath, which is concentrated thermal system operating electricity is more than the electricity we generate from the thermal system. So the question of production of electricity through solar thermal versus PV. Anyone would like to take that, Guillermo?
Well, this is a CSP, concentrated solar power question. I was in concentration solar power like 10 years ago, and I remember the big expectations that we had about the fact that concentrated solar power was dispatchable and not depending on the weather and this and that. But of course, the overwhelming cost reduction that PV witnessed during these 10 years has pushed the concentrated solar power a bit on the sidelines. And there are, of course, large-scale plants that are up and running. I don't know their performance, neither in terms of actually energy output or economic performance, if that's the case. I remember that when I was talking about it like 10 years ago in 2014, we were talking about a cost of 130, 140 production cost, 130, 140 euros per megawatt hour electrical produced. And today with the PV in sunny places like the ones we were looking at, we're talking about a fraction of it, like 20 or 30 euros per megawatt hour electrical. So I guess that's the reason why we didn't see much development as we saw in PV. But I don't know, maybe Berbel has a different view of this.
Yeah, I think the best source for electricity costs in general is the Renewable Power Generation Cost Report of IRENA. This is annually published, and it's based, as I said before, on real data, as we did for solar thermal as well. And the most current version from this report is, if I see clear, it must have been out already this year. I will also share the link. Or maybe it's not out yet for this year, so the previous year.
Okay. We then have a question about PV to heat. I guess, Werner, you had a couple of slides on that. From Zengenren, solar PV diverter for hot water, is it popular in the States?
Not. So if it's meant by United States, I'm not aware of it. So PV to heat is especially popular where we really see a market, as I mentioned in my presentation, in Southern Africa. There are several companies offering this system. So it's very simple system. So PV directly connected to the storage with direct current without an inverter. So very simple systems to keep the price down. But these systems are already cheaper than normal thermosiphon systems. So there might really be, with thermosiphon systems, a strong competitor in future, because besides the simplicity of the system is you avoid to have the storage on the tank on the roof, which is an issue in a lot of these countries because the roofs are usually not very strong, and then if you put another 300 or 500 liter on top of the roof, this is a static problem sometimes. So you can put it into the building itself, and you avoid overheating, means stagnation, and also frost issues. So there is really a market, and this might come also in other countries. So in South Africa, we saw at least 34,000 systems are already installed. And on a much, much smaller scale is what I presented. There's some buildings where they put PV on facades, roofs, use the electricity and for space heating of buildings and go into really huge storages. And yeah, what has to be mentioned here, also Guillermo mentioned it already, the area availability. So you need about 3 times more area to get the same energy output. And this is an issue if you go to bigger installations. It's not so much of an issue if you have a 300 liter hot water system. But I think that's my personal point of view. It's something the solar thermal sector should be aware of. And especially in the small scale system area, think about it. that this could be an option.
Okay, and I think just a remark from myself, here in Europe, there is the Energy Performance of Building Directive, which is having a component for a solar mandate, allowing all solar technologies to be used on buildings and rooftops. So this is open to all technologies, and of course there will be case-by-case decisions according to the needs of that building and you know, the type of building which is. So the two technologies can also co-share the space and the rooftop. So according to what is most efficiently needed, and as we said, with solar thermal being very efficient in terms of space, it needs to be borne in mind. Okay, so I don't see any other questions, so I'm proposing to hand back to Arabella from ISS, and I would like to thank our panelists for their contribution and their presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, Valerie. Thank you very much to all of the speakers for joining us again today. Just a few closing remarks from my side. The presentation you just saw in the recorded version will be made available, both the recording and the presentations as a PDF document, and you can get those resources on the IEA SHC Solar Academy homepage, as well as on the ISS homepage in a few days. For any ISS members on this call, there is the ISS members area. You have all the recordings of the webinars in there. And then finally, one reminder about a joint ISS and IEA SHC venture. It's this year's Eurosun 2024, our international conference on sustainable and solar energy for buildings and industry. It's going to take place in Limassol in Cyprus at the end of August. I know that many of our speakers from today will also be there, and so I invite you, the audience, to join us in Cyprus if you would like to. The registration for the conference is open, and we're looking forward to having you there. All right, and with that, thank you very much to everybody. We are going to close the webinar now and see you for the next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Great day.
Bye-bye.